Hey everybody, welcome back to Video Game. So today I got a fun and exciting episode for you guys this evening as I'm playing the recently released work-in-progress demo that ports Celeste to the Nintendo Entertainment System. And honestly, I'm super impressed with what I'm seeing so far because it seems like the gameplay of Celeste can translate to any system and any dimension, and it absolutely still holds up. And this was released on January 25th for the 7th anniversary of the release of the original Celeste. We've talked about that, we've talked about Celeste 64, now we're talking about the NES remake, and honestly, I absolutely love how it comes across to the NES. All of the gameplay mechanics are intact, but you get that 8-bit aesthetic going. And just so you know, I'm playing this on MiSTer FPGA, but you can play it on real hardware as well as software emulation. And honestly, the only wrong way to play it's not to play it in the first place. Before I get too far involved, if you can do me a huge favor, go down below, hit like and subscribe, and ring that notification bell. Definitely helps us out. And if you feel so inclined and want to support the channel, I got a Patreon link down below as well. But honestly, Celeste translates so well over to the 8-bit aesthetic. It is fun to see a new version of the game, and just be aware it's not complete as of yet. This is a demo. It's going to have 3 areas in the game, and then it is going to end. It's definitely going to challenge you as well. You'll see here I missed that first jump because it's been a minute since I played any sort of Celeste. Celeste 64 was the last time I took a look at the franchise. But once you get the hang of this, once you get the boosting down, you're going to absolutely be flying through the levels, and even some of those hard jumps are still in here that are really going to be some mind-boggling puzzles. And that is the fun thing about Celeste. It isn't just an action platformer, it's also a puzzle platformer where you kind of have to understand the best way to navigate around the screen. You'll see here the overworld map. You have 3 areas to go to, so it's not a finished experience yet, but the programmer iProgram in CPP has stated that they do have plans on finishing up the game. They've released this demo to get feedback from fans and players just to see if they're on the right track. So if you want to play this, I will leave a link in the description below, and if you do have any feedback, contact the developer nicely, of course, and give them your thoughts, because honestly, I'm definitely having a ton of fun with this one. Everything seems to control perfectly fine, except every once in a while I feel like some of the diagonal inputs do drop, but that could just be down to my controller. But the thing about this game is I would highly recommend you play it on real hardware or on something like MiSTer FPGA, because some of the timing on the jumps is quite tight by design, so you definitely don't want to have a lot of latency in your emulation. So bring a pretty heavy test rig if you want to emulate this, just so you don't have any of those situations where you were missing a frame and you ended up falling into a pit versus jumping just due to that latency. And that's not something you're going to deal with on real hardware or on MiSTer FPGA, and for the most part has been cleaned up on software emulation as well, but just a little bit of food for thought. And that's definitely a pun, because the strawberries are back in Celeste on NES. You're going to be collecting them all over the place. What I really love about this game is it's a puzzle inside of an action platformer. You kind of just get led by the hand into a level, but then by the 4th or 5th screen, you're really going to have to start thinking about the best way to circumnavigate around, trying to keep yourself safe while collecting some of the power-ups in the level in and of themselves. Pretty much every level or screen is going to show you something new that you get to see or do, and that is a lot of fun. There's even some rooms here that are completely optional just to collect the strawberry, which really aren't going to affect the gameplay whatsoever as far as what you're going to see, but it definitely gives you extra challenge. And once you start dying 1 or 2 times, you're just going to sit there and have a fun time struggling trying to get that strawberry. That's what I love about something like Celeste so much. It gives you these extra goals, and suddenly it takes you 10 to 15 minutes to complete them, but the sense of satisfaction when you're actually able to do what you want in the level, navigate around correctly, and get to the next stage, it really does feel like a great accomplishment. That's what you want as a feedback loop in any sort of video game. You want enough challenge to feel like it really is testing you, but you don't want it to be so incredibly hard that you feel like it is unfair. This straddles the line perfectly between that maximum difficulty in some areas while never actually being unfair. Sometimes you're trying to play the level in the way it doesn't want to be played, and you have to better understand what it's asking of you. And of course, the repeat boost signals come in as well. If you collect those green icons, you get your boost back in midair, which will definitely become a thing. But remember, platforms can also crush you. In some ways, this feels like Super Meat Boy if Super Meat Boy was also brought over to the NES, and I actually love to see that. If someone wants to make it, absolutely have at it and give it a shot. But as far as what's on display here in this work-in-progress prototype, it absolutely is something that I think should be finished up. It has all of the charm and all of the platforming of Celeste, and I would say the soundtrack coming over to the 8-bit chiptune sounds great as well. So go ahead and listen for 45 seconds. I'll be back with more game. I get a tiny bit of DuckTale vibes in the soundtrack here, but it comes across so well as far as the NES sound chip is concerned, because again, it's very chiptune in all of the best ways. And like pretty much anything Celeste, there's definitely going to be some hidden items in the game. There's going to be some puzzles, there's going to be some false walls. The sense of discovery within Celeste in and of itself is just as much fun, if not more so, than the platforming. I've always felt like it kind of had the best parts of something like Cave Story combined with something like Fez to make its own unique game. And again, the challenge in Celeste, especially in the game that came out 7 years ago, when you get later on into the game, can be absolutely maddeningly difficult in all of the best ways. It's kind of the concept of a bullet hell shmup, except in a completely different gameplay format in my opinion. It takes an infinite amount of time to get good and practice at the game, but you have so much fun when you're doing it. The feedback loop is just great. Like right here you'll see I can realize that there's no way to get around that area without coming from a different direction. I just don't have the boost, I don't have the angle, so you're kind of just exploring this area and wondering to yourself, why can't I yet go through these star fields? We have to figure out how to do that, how to access different areas within this map, and the sense of discovery is so much fun in this game, and it comes across so well on the NES. This feels like something that had it released back in the day on retail store shelves, it would have absolutely gotten incredible reviews and would probably be remembered as maybe top 50 NES games of all time, maybe top 100, because there are a ton of classics. And that's why I love projects like this. Did the NES need a port of Celeste? Absolutely not. We have the original game, it's available on pretty much every platform you could imagine, so why do something like this? And the answer to that is honestly, for me, why not? The more fun we can have, the more games we have on different consoles, the more fan experiences get made, to the more fun everyone has. And you'll see here I'm able to get this strawberry and then drop down and actually find out how you're going to like this one, the one that you saw me trying to boost into. Remember, if you can't get at something from one angle, start thinking in a different direction, and then maybe you'll do better there. But now the area seems to be closed off. I've gone and searched absolutely everything, and I can't figure out how to progress next. That is some of the fun in Celeste. You have to kind of just identify objects in your environment and decide where maybe things might be, because this wall right here with a slightly misaligned pixel you can actually boost into, crash through, and go to the next area of the game. And again, with all of these wall climbs, with all of the reboosts, actually getting through these screens just feels so good. It feels like you're clicking with the game, you're firing on all cylinders, and when you die it's because you made a mistake or didn't read the level correctly, not because the game fought you, and that is so much fun. Trust me, there is a little bit of frustration in Celeste on NES. Like any good challenging game, you are going to get frustrated, but it's not going to be because the game fought you too much. It's just going to be because you're not quite sure yet what you're supposed to do in the game. But now we've cracked the mirror here, and we have the ability to move through these star fields, and the game's opened up even more. But I'm going to do one more soundtrack sample, because the second stage gets a completely different soundtrack than the first, and I think it sounds every bit as good coming out of the NES as it did in the original soundtrack. So listen, and I'll be right back with more. Honestly, I love that music, and if you do too, you should check out Lo-Fi Beats to Study to. It's a playlist on Spotify that I put around in the background if I'm cleaning the house or cooking, and it just has that vibe. You kind of notice the music, but it also blends into the background in a really nice way. But I am 100% here for Celeste on NES. It's every bit as good as the main game, just with that NES aesthetic, and getting new games on NES that you can play on pretty much any system you want is always going to be a good time. So the developer absolutely nailed this one. They have a very interesting concept, a very challenging gameplay loop, just like the main Celeste. It's going to boggle your mind, and at least for the content here in the work in progress demo, probably take you 45 minutes to an hour to see everything, unless you're a Celeste champ, and in that case maybe 25 minutes tops. Leave me a comment down below and you tell me what you think of the demo and what you think of Celeste in general. But we are done. I'm going to keep trying to get the rest of the strawberries, but definitely check this one out. I will leave the link below. Hope you guys enjoyed the video, and I'll see you next time. Bye bye.